Hi, this is Miss Mauer, and she's going to tell us a little bit about herself.
Hi, I'm Laura, and I'm a teacher in Tennessee.
Okay, so I have a couple questions for you today, and I don't know how to go about this. Okay, so I'm just going to ask the questions. So the first one I have is, what are some of the ways that you engage your students with the lessons and learning about them?
Um, one way that I engage students in learning is through accountable talk, and that is a way to engage students through conversation so that because as teachers, we all ask questions of our students, and then oftentimes what happens is we ask the question, we answer it ourselves, or we let one student answer the question. And that doesn't allow for all the students to think about the question that I'm asking. So, accountable talk is one way to get all students engaged in the conversation and content. So that just is the way. What you do is you ask them pose the questions to the class, and then give them time to think, and then you randomly call on the students, so they don't know who's going to be called on, and in that they know potential time. I mean, students will be called on. So that is an accountability in the classroom. So instead of asking one student answering with one student thinking, if I use the cross strategy, all students are potentially being called on for to answer the question. So then what we really want to do is want to have students so that they're really thinking instead
Oh, okay. And this next one I have is, how do you connect subject matter to a student's real life content, like real life context? Like, how do you bring their, yeah.
Okay, well, one thing I can think of is like, for example, in high school, teaching how to do it. So what do you do is Shakespeare is hard to understand, it's not easily relatable to this. So then what we do is we find something articles, and one of those is called the Permanent Summary. That is a link, right? So then they can read this piece of text that you are linked to, and then they can make connections between the original text and the text that they can relate to. It helps bring context into that. So just thinking of what we like, really as a teacher being in touch with what's the current reality of students, they're heavily connected connections, they're cell phones, unfortunately. I know lots of kids would rather do homework on their cell phone than their laptop, but just being connected to like what's relevant to their age group, and then trying to find ways to bring that into the context so that they can relate to it in their
Wow, that's really cool. Do you work with the students' families as far as their to get more support for them at home with their education?
and I think that just finding ways to keep their parents and their families and connected to the classroom. So, like for example, you could send out weekly newsletters saying this is what we do class, or sending this is what we will be doing. And then, also sending out ideas for parents, say for example, there's a program working with chemical changes in the classroom. Then here is something that you can create about with your students related to this. So finding three most important changes at home and just in science. So that way you can keep your families connected to what their students is currently learning, and then you can talk about the environment you have with your students. And then like I said, that would be the program for students that have newsletters, what they're doing with their students current, what their current
Very nice. What assessments do you use in order to gauge a student's knowledge and understanding of a lesson?
Assessing some of that executives so that what I'm really trying to look at is if I'm going to some I know when they leave my classroom, do I know what they learned? Did they understand what they learned? Have they passed the various readings? Executives and say, for example, you give them the list of the paper, you stick a note, and you have let them, if a teacher honors a word before they walk on the floor, they get it, and they get it, and it's kind of like it's very square. The teacher saying things or, I don't need to help with this. And they don't understand that, obviously, they need to correct the word, multiple point strategies, but the word when I'm teaching and I'm like, okay, so we're going to do this one out with it, here's the but the kids, I'm sure all they are, they don't want to be this,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's tickets for example in there, all the technology, tools, all kinds of learning management systems to assess what they know, what they need. And the programs we want to do that before they get somebody to do that. Before a kid takes the test, I should know who's going to struggle on that test and who's not going to struggle on that test. So that means that I'm assessing them along the way, and then that also tells me if I need to speed up or if I need to slow down, if I need to change some things.
All right. Okay. Do you? I'm going to skip one and then I'll go back to number 5. Do you collaborate with other teachers in with, I guess, going about how students learn and
Yeah, we get together in PLCs and we meet and we plan lessons. We try to, find resources that are going to be the best for the kids that we have with us. We have, one of us may be better at teaching, atomic structure than another one of us. And so we'll get together and, and of course we've looked at data from the previous year and say, for example, my peer has she taught atomic structure and her kids really did well on that and my kids didn't do so well on that. So what did you do and what did you say in your classroom that helped your kids get it? So then we share strategies and we share resources and then that helps all of our kids.
What's PLC?
Oh, a professional learning community.
Okay.
Where, you meet together and plan.
Okay.
You learn together and research together and all those things.
Okay. Okay, so we'll go back to number 5. So what are various ways that what do you do to help prevent bullying?
I think that it is the relationships that you build in your classroom. So if I start out my year with starting with that this is a place that we learn together, that we work together, and that making it a safe place to learn. So it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to say the wrong thing. It's okay to get something wrong, that we're all learning from each other and that I as a teacher am going to make mistakes. And so when somebody makes a mistake, we don't make fun of them. We don't call them, stupid or, oh, we don't do any of that stuff. We say, oh, you know what? I thought about that a little differently. And so creating that culture in your classroom translates to the hallways. So if I can create a environment in my classroom where it's safe to be wrong, it's safe to make mistakes, it's safe to be silly, and then that mentality carries over and spills out of my classroom, and that lessens the bullying. And then also, I think it's also being aware of your campus procedures It's being aware of maybe being on a PBIS, you know, which is a behavior system. So maybe being on your behavior, whatever your behavior system is, committee. So being on that and being involved in the decision making of how do we address these issues on our campus. And so being aware of that, and then just holding kids accountable to, and having conversations with kids, you know, about how we treat others and how we react to others.
All right. What do you do when problem behaviors occur?
Stop it. No, I'm just kidding. Often for me, it's usually, I always like to think of that when kids are having a behavior problem, that is a symptom of a bigger issue. So I equate it to, for example, let's say if you have a toothache, you have pain in your tooth. That is a symptom of something bigger happening in your tooth, right? So you need to go and get that taken care of, and then you don't have pain anymore. So if a kid is having behavior problems, what is that behavior coming from? So is it because you got in an argument with your mom in the morning? Because that happens all the time. Is it because somebody was mean to you, or is it because you're embarrassed that you don't understand this topic, or you're embarrassed that you can't answer a question, and so you're going to act out so that nobody knows that about that insecurity about yourself? So I always like to think of, where is this coming from? And so I'll often say, hey, can we step out in the hall and have a conversation? And so then we'll just have a conversation, but like, where's this coming from? This isn't, what's going on? And usually that will solve the problem. And that, I think it is that you have developed relationships with your students. And so if I initially, from the beginning of my, and setting up my classroom and the procedures, if I have developed an environment that's safe, and I have developed a classroom where I'm here to support you and I'm here to help you, that they are willing to talk to me. And so in that, if I do that, then I have less behavior problems. So when they do pop up, I know that it's because something else is going on. Something else is happening. And so I need to, let's everybody stop for a second. I'm going to go out here and we're going to have a conversation and we're going to figure out where this is coming from and see if we can find a solution to it, or if we can. Sometimes it's just, hey, can we table this? Can we get past this just for now, and then we'll handle it later? And then sometimes, that'll work too. But I think that it's thinking about the behavior isn't about me as a teacher. It's about something that's going on with that kid. So figuring out what that is and where it's coming from.
Okay. All right. So that basically covers number 9, how to solve conflict. Well, I guess, does it? Like, how do you solve conflicts between students, I guess? Okay.
So, do you want me to talk about that? Yes? Okay. So conflict between students is like, kids are kids, and they say mean things and they do mean things, and then they also have misunderstandings just like adults do. And so oftentimes it's just getting those 2 kids or 3 kids, whatever, just sit down and talk to each other and have a conversation.
Right.
And so that in itself lies in equipping our kids with skills to be able to problem solve, right? And so they are having conflict potentially because they don't have those skills and they don't know how to conflict, resolution between each other, because they're young and their brains are not, mature yet. And so teaching them how to, when you've said something that upsets me or you've done something that upsets me, how do I respond to that? And so sitting down with kids and equipping them with those skills and facilitating those conversations between them often resolves a lot of those conflicts.
Okay.